Hey everybody, it's Carter. Welcome to this episode of Making It Up, the conversation series kind of made for writers. But if you're not a writer, you can listen. Maybe you'll get a kick out of it. But it's a chat between two writers, and we just kind of see where it all goes. It is August 6th, and I'm getting ready to go out of town. I've got a lot of travel coming up in the next couple months, and I'm hoping I stay healthy so I can go on all these cool trips. But I'm headed to Nashville next week, and then to Austin, Texas, and then to Minnesota for BoucherCon in September. And then right after I get back from BoucherCon, I head to the Czech Republic, to Prague for about 4 or 5 days, and then to Austria for a few days after that. So that's the one. That's the trip that I really need to stay healthy for. So still haven't gotten COVID, knock on wood. Trying to avoid it. But I really don't want to get it and have to cancel that trip. So I'll let you know how it goes. Today on the show, I spoke to Faye Snowden, who was an absolute delight to have a conversation with. And Faye Snowden is the author of several noir mysteries, poems, and short stories. Her novels include Spiral of Guilt, The Savior, Fatal Justice, and A Killing Fire. And actually, The Killing Fire is the first in a 4-part series, and the second book is her latest book called Killing Rain, which came out in June of this year. And she was very cool. She is a very long road to publication, as most people do. We talked a little bit about, her growing up, her family growing up without maybe a lot of money, lots of kids in the family, and how books were escape for her, which is usually the case when I talk to people who grew up with a bunch of siblings and maybe they weren't getting all the attention. A lot of them sought companionship in reading, and she went to the Navy and then got her master's in English. And one thing we really had in common for sure was figuring out how to write and maintain a full-time job at the same time, which isn't easy, but it's not really that hard either, as long as your heart is in the right place, your passion's in the right place, and you're highly organized. It can be done. So I've been maintaining a full-time job while writing for nearly 20 years now. If that gives you any indication about the financial realities of being a writer. But yeah, so it's an area, it's a topic that we got into as well, because I think there's some practical advice for people who are looking to do the same thing that Faye and I have maybe managed to accomplish over the years. But anyway, she was a fantastic guest. I really liked getting to know her and hearing her story and hearing about her road to publication. So I think you're going to enjoy this one. This is my conversation with Faye Snowden. All right. Well, it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
So where are you?
I am in Modesto, California, in my
yeah.
detached office that I built when I realized that I was going to be doing a lot of working from home. My house is a multi-generational household. So I have grandkids, adult kids.
Oh, you just and has it been like that throughout the pandemic? You've had all those people there?
Oh my goodness. You know what? We have always had somebody living with us all the time. I mean, when we were getting the house ready for my son and his partner and their kids to come in, we were like, you know how many times this bedroom has turned over through the last 20 years? My nephews, nieces, cousins, it's just people that need I don't know what it is with us, but people who just like, we don't have any place to stay. We're like, we're here.
Right. Yeah. You just collect the strays.
Yeah. I just collect them all. But I love a big house and a lot of noise and that type of thing. So yeah.
Not super conducive to writing, but maybe that works for you.
No, it's not. It's not. And then when I started working from home, for my day job as well, I said, okay, we got to do something.
Right.
And so I did a she shed.
Okay.
I call it an office, but
right. Yeah. That's the equivalent of the man cave, is the she shed.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. But when I'm working really hard, I call it my cage.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's also a place, like I have a few different places like that in my house that I definitely kind of built up a little bit more during the pandemic. But, and I only write like an hour a day, but I get to go escape into there. And it is very encompassing feeling, very like a very safe space. And I kind of look forward to it all day and just that 1 hour in there. So it is nice to have that kind of sanctuary.
Yeah, it is. The first time I came in here, I was like, where have you been all my life?
But then there's pressure. Like, now I got to really be productive. I don't have any excuses.
Yeah, no more.
Did you grow up in California?
No, actually, it was really interesting. When people ask me where I'm from, it's like a complicated question. Yeah. So I grew up I'm from, birth to about 10, I was in San Fernando, California. Then my parents got divorced, and my mom, I always tell this story, told us we were going to Disneyland. And put us on a Greyhound bus. And we ended up, can you imagine 3 days? Mom, where is this Disneyland?
This is better be good.
Or is it Disney World? Are you sure?
Right.
And then we went, I'm sure it was just, my mom was a smart ass. So I'm sure it was just a flip, and she was under all kind of pressure.
Sure.
But we ended up in Shreveport, Louisiana. And that's where I spent my formative years from 10 to 18 until I went to the Navy.
That's Bayou country, no?
Yes, it is. It is. Shreveport is interesting because there are pockets of it that, you would be there and you would think you were in any other American city. There you wouldn't see swamps and everything around. Right. But they do have areas of wet, I would call it, like, wetlands. And there's a beautiful lake out there called Caddo Lake, I believe. And I haven't been back I went back for my Aunt Betty's funeral, 8 years ago, something like that. But
okay. Yeah. Okay. And so you're growing up you're having your formative years in Shreveport, and you had siblings or no?
Yes, I had 5 brothers and sisters.
See, this is where the whole needing to have a lot of people in the house comes from.
I think so. And it was so funny. And my mom, and we all lived in a shotgun house. Have you ever heard of a shotgun house?
Explain that to me.
Okay. So they're small houses, and there's the rooms are stacked one behind the other, 3 rooms usually, and a kitchen. So there's the living room, and then there is the middle room, and then there's a kitchen, and there's a bathroom out the side, and then you have the back door. Legend has it that you could take a shotgun. I don't know why they said shotgun, because you'd think everything would be going all over.
Right, rifle maybe.
Your rifle, and you can shoot it in the front door, and the bullet will come out the back.
Got it. So do you actually, if you want to go from one, like the furthest back room to the most front room, you have to go through all the rooms?
Yes.
So there's not a lot of privacy going on there.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Some of the things I saw when I was a kid, I was like, and then it's so funny because there, some things you don't shed, right? When you grow up, you're just like, well, this is just how I grew up.
Right.
And then my house now, no hallways. And I put this in one of the books, but we had no hallways. And I just want to grow up so someday I can have a hallway.
Right.
But now,
what a thing to aspire to. Yeah.
And now I have a house with hallways, but my husband, it drives my husband crazy because my bedroom door is always open, and the kids are, they're always invited, they just barge in, and everybody barges in. And my husband's like, where am I? And why am I here? And
right.
Like no privacy living with them. Well, my maiden name is Berkeley, right? No privacy, because that's how I grew up. Everybody, we slept in the same bed. There's a bed in the front room. And
wow.
All that madness, yeah.
Wow, that would overwhelm me. But I mean, I guess if that's what you grew up with, that's what you knew.
Yeah.
So as you're growing up there, were you recognizing in yourself maybe there was some flair of creativity, some desire to read, to write, or were you just kind of being a normal kid?
No, there was, all the pressures growing up in the South, being Black, and
Mhm.
we were very poor. Of course, we lived in a shotgun house, and I didn't really have a really good relationship with my mom and even my siblings, and we're all crunched in together.
Mhm.
So I spent a lot of time escaping, and I escaped through TV,
Mhm.
television, and I also escaped through books. I mean, I was reading everything. When I was listening to your interview with Sean Cosby, and it was like he was talking about how much he read and did, but I also read everything.
Mhm.
So what was going on with me was, God, there was not a lot of Black people in those books, and not a lot of Black people on TV. And so I started like making up stories in my head that had Black people in it, and women who were kick-ass in it. And then I just started writing some of those stories down. And then
as a teenager, you were doing that.
as a teenager,
Yeah.
right. And then I come from a family of writers. The Berkeley's my aunt Ruby in 1954 wrote a book called "It's Good to Be Black." I think it was her son, if I'm not mistaken, and she's like my great aunt. But he wrote, some episodes of The Big Valley and Bonanza and that type of thing. And then my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, was kind of a writer, and my dad wrote poetry. So, so all that stuff. So I knew that, I could be that because it was modeled for me. But my mom, like I tell folks, my mom was like, you're not going to make any money at that. You better get a day job. So she knew.
Well, that's that. Right. When your father is a poet and you don't necessarily see that, bringing in tens of thousands of dollars a year.
The money going out, right? Because you have to do the self-publishing, the chapbooks, and
Okay, so he was pretty active with getting his poetry out there.
Oh, he was.
Yeah,
he was.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So you're talking about it being escape, and I've talked to a lot of different people, and there is kind of that germ of, where did this come from? And that word escape comes up a lot of times.
Wow.
Whatever that escape needs to be, whether it's from a crowded shotgun house or just, moving around a lot. And I think with TV, that's difficult to escape when you have so many siblings in the house, and depending on how many TVs you have, you're fighting over. Yeah.
Three channels, right?
And 3 channels. So that's not much of an escape. And when you carry a book with you, that is your bubble. You can go sit anywhere and read the book. So I love the fact that you kind of describe it as an escape. And then you have kind of, I don't know if it's pressure, but you definitely have these, familial literary influences. So when you decided to, college was in the picture and you wanted to study that, writing, or what did you want to, what were you thinking at that time?
And then college was so funny. And I just, like I said, I was watching some of your shows, and then I was never encouraged to go to college. And then when I was telling somebody this, and they gave me kind of skeptical snake eyes, but it was true. I mean, I made straight A's at high school. I was like, I think my sister was number 14 and I was number 15, or maybe even up, or maybe up in the tens. I don't remember. In a class of 350, 400 people.
Oh,
wow. But it was just not something. I was never encouraged to go to college.
Was that a financial discouragement, or was it just
I think it was
attitudinal one?
I think it was attitudinal. I mean, the financial, because we never had any money.
Right.
And then also the counselors in that time when I was going to C.E. Bird High School was something that they didn't talk to us about that. So what I did was I went into the Navy. Right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I remember I did have like those teachers that you just want to just like, if you could just wrap them up and take them with you for the rest of your life, you would do that. Right. And I remember my home economics teacher saying, "Okay, Faye, what are you going to do, Mrs. Taylor?" And I said, "Well, I want to be a writer." But my mom said, "Fool, you're not going to make any money at that. You better have a day job." And she goes, "Well, what are you thinking about?" And I said, "Well, I like to push buttons and stuff." And so she was like, "Well, what about computers? They're going to be hot." And so I went into the Navy and learned computer. I was a computer operator and did some work in Italy and all that stuff. But every duty station I went to college. I took college classes, and all those college classes were English.
Oh, wow.
So I had like this big bucket of credits. And then when I left the Navy, and then I was just kind of in my day job, I just took all those credits and got my English degree. But it was always been my second love, writing. And
I'm interested in that decision-making process, though, because in a lot of different places you can go and push buttons.
I know.
But you decide I'm going to enlist in the military in order to push buttons. I mean, was there a security there knowing, was there a GI Bill attached to that commitment? Yes. And that was part of the decision-making process?
It really was, because you got, it's not like good as the GI Bill is today, but you did get college, there was a free college tuition, and you got some, and you could put money away from college as well. So that's how I was able to take all those classes. And
so you left. So how long were you in the Navy for?
That was 5 years.
Okay. So when you left, did you have the equivalent of a bachelor's degree, or you just had a lot of credits?
I had a bucket of credits.
Yeah,
I was just like, I remember in Rome, I took this class. I'll never forget her. She's another teacher. I'll never forget Pauline Fry. And when I published my first book, I even sent her a note. Look at what I did. But I took
that's great, and I'm sure she was thrilled.
Yeah,
she must be. Was. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and then so I took a class in Rome about the expatriates of Rome. A lot of expats went to Rome from America, and so we talked about that. And then there was and that's went to France too. But we also did what else did we do? Have you ever been to Italy? And there's the Spanish Steps there.
Oh yeah, in
do
Rome.
You know that Keats is right above? Did you go see Keats' room?
I did not. No.
Okay. So we did, authors of that lived in that area and everything like that. So it was just like classes like that I took, and then ended up, like I said, with this big bucket of credits, and it's so hilarious. And then when I did get my degree, it was just I needed the general ed. Yeah.
Right. And then when I was reading your bio, you went on and got your master's.
Yes. And that was purely love. That was purely love of English. And I'm going to pause. I'm so sorry. I'm going to post my Slack notifications.
No problem.
But it was pure love of just wanting to learn more about writing and reading and whatnot. And hang on just a second. And it was just, it was, I'm going to pause it for 2 hours. Yeah. So that was kind of like why I did that. And I did that when I was working for University of the Pacific, right?
Okay.
And that was my alma mater anyway. I forgot my bachelor's, and I will never forget. I was at a reception where the provost was there and everything. And then he was talking to me, and he goes, "Well, I heard you're getting your master's." And I go, yeah, finally. I said, I wanted to do it here, but you guys canceled your master's program in English at the time. And he goes, "Yeah, that was me." And he's like my boss's boss. And I was like, I'm so glad I didn't say some idiot.
Right.
He started laughing. He's all glad you didn't say that either.
So maybe there just wasn't enough interest to sustain that degree at that place.
Yeah, yes. And even now it's even worse. I was talking to one of my professors, and I said, I'm old-fashioned. I'm really jonesing on this English stuff, and I kind of want to get my PhD. And she sent me a note back, and she says, unless the only reason you're doing it is is for the knowledge and because you love it and enjoy it, she said, do it. But she says, don't go into debt. And she said, don't go on the debt because it's just the popularity in universities right now. And it's right. it's kind of being disrupted by a whole bunch of other things, So
your master's was in English?
Yes, English lit. Well, it's in English, but it's literature.
Yes, yeah. English lit. So as you're getting your master's, or actually as you finish your master's, did you have, so that's a commitment, right? So this bug you have about wanting to write clearly is not being shelved. You're pursuing it, even though you have had this advice from your mom and just maybe you,
right.
And so, as you get your master's, do you have a different perception of what it would take to have financial success as an author? Has that changed at all? Or are you at this point like, I want to do this, but I know I still have to have a day job. How do I make these two things work?
Yeah, when I published my first novel, I have that kind of that shine in my eyes that a lot of novelists have when they put their debut out there, that they're going to be rich and walking on sunshine and drinking margaritas and all that. And that bubble got busted pretty quick.
So let's back up for a second. When did you write that first novel?
Okay, so this is going to age me. This is going to surprise you because I know my appearance is youthful.
You are very youthful appearing.
Oh, thank you. 1999.
Okay.
So my first novel, I was I don't even remember how old I was. It was really bad.
Well, so, all first novels are. How did you publish that traditionally, or did you self-publish?
Yes. I had an editor and an agent that believed in me and believed in the novel. But as I've written more novels, I realize, and I just totally give them all the thanks and grace and thank them for giving me grace. But the characters were not developed. I can go back and probably catalog all the things that were wrong with that novel. I realized how bad it was. Yeah, so I've learned more since then.
Yeah, and I think so. What you're saying is totally common, right? For all writers, no one even goes back and looks at, their old. I mean, my first 3 books never sold, and they shouldn't have sold. I was lucky to get an agent with my first book, but my first 3 didn't sell. But I think sometimes. And this is weird for me to be saying this, I think sometimes we as writers don't give ourselves enough credit. Because I think you did have that, you had a third-party agent who believed in the book and is not making any money until it sells, and you had an editor who bought the book. So there was stuff there that made it a valid thing to publish at the time. But you've probably changed so much as a writer that it's, I look back at my early stuff and I'm like, I wouldn't write that kind of thing today.
Either, yeah.
But that doesn't mean it was bad.
Well,
how was it received when it went out?
Oh, I thought it did pretty well. I mean, I sold. I mean, and I don't know what's well, right?
Right. It's good. They're going to be small numbers if it's a small press.
10,000.
10,000 is fantastic, actually. Yeah. 10,000 copies with an indie press is
No, this was with Kensington.
Oh, okay, with Kensington. Okay, so
yeah, I remember correctly, and and then they may come back and say no, it wasn't Faye, but I remember it was because I remember discussing with my brother-in-law, and he says, and I was all lamenting that I only sold 10,000 copies. He goes, Faye, nobody's ever read 10,000 of anything I've written, so shut up.
Right. Well, and it's hard to have any perspective at that point when you're a debut novelist to even understand kind of the machinations of the publishing industry of what is good, what's not good. And, I was just at Thriller Fest and I was attending a panel and that was filled with agents and editors. And they're kind of saying, they don't look at every author as okay, we have to have, 100,000 copy author here. Everyone who sells 10,000 copies, that's kind of their bread and butter. And they don't have to make money. You can even not earn out your advance, but still be profitable for the publisher. So that made me feel better a little bit. Is they're looking, at least now, who knows, times have changed. Now they're just looking to develop a stable of writers who will be around for 5, 6, 7 books that, they can grow and promote. So, I would have been thrilled to have sold 10,000. My first book came out and my publisher went out of business about 6 months later. And it had just formed about a year before. So it was just it was a blink of an eye publisher that was tiny. And I don't even know how many copies I sold. I'm sure it wasn't 10,000.
Yeah.
Not even after 20 years, it probably hasn't sold that. So you have a day job at that point and you're still, but you've got the bug. You've written a novel. You're not stopping that. So did you have in your mind okay, here's my plan for the future of writing. I'm just going to keep writing books and
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, I just, I've always written since I was a teenager. I never thought about stopping. So I just kept writing. And then I published three books with Kensington. And then that house, my editor left, and there was no one willing there to support me anymore. And, you get your numbers were not good for your second and third books. So I ended up going to a small publisher, Flame Tree, and I love those guys. And that's who I'm with now. And I don't know. That's an interesting question. I never really had a plan. I know that some people out there who they're doing this stuff really well and they have their like career plan of what they're going to do and how many books they do a year. I'm not like that. I'm just, and it's mainly because I may be busy with the day job and the kids and stuff that I know that I can't pump out a book a year or a book every 6 months or
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm the same way. I have a day job as well. I mean, it's very flexible, but I realized very early on, because I kind of fell into writing. I didn't study it or anything like that. So I realized early on. So I came at it with a position of like extreme vulnerability and humiliation so I'm like, yeah, I'm probably never going to be published, but I like doing this, but I need to figure out how to do this while I work this day job, which, comes to the hour a day writing kind of a thing. But with enough discipline, I can totally write a book in a year, but it's got to be 7 days a week. But I love it. So, even if people weren't buying my books, I can't imagine okay, I guess I'm just not doing that anymore. That's unfathomable to me.
Right. Yes. That's what unfathomable. Yeah. You're absolutely, that's how I feel the same way.
But all that being said, as you do start to publish, you do want to make money. You do want to get your name out there more. So you do start kind of analyzing and studying the industry and the impact of, eventually for you, social media, starts becoming a thing. And how do I promote myself? So where, at what point are you feeling? So at what point are you with Flame Tree?
I'm with Flame Tree when I was selling my, the first of the 4-part series I'm on now, the Raven Burn series, in 2019, because there were some times, and I tell this story a lot, but I had to make some decisions when my kids were starting to be teenagers, because you know what teenagers do. One son was great. He was like the model citizen because he didn't want what was happening to my other son who was doing this to happen to him, right? So he's like, I'm over here, Zach, you do your thing. So I had to quit. I never quit writing, but I did quit seeking publication so I can deal with, be there for my older son who was having some real problems being a teenager. So I published from 1999 books and a few poems until 2007, and I took that break, and then I started publishing again or looking for publications around 2017, around that time. And it was never that clean, right? I may have sent a few stuff out, but I wasn't serious about it. And then I got my agent, and then went to Flame Tree, and they picked up A Killing Fire in 2019.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, with your debut novel, if your parents were still around, were they excited? Or they still kind of saw it as folly?
My mom still saw it as folly. My dad, though, was of course over the moon.
Oh,
right?
That's great.
He's here. He's here. He's still alive. My mom has passed on, but he's still over the moon. When I need an ego boost, I just call him so he can tell me how brilliant I am.
Isn't that great? We all need that, because there is so much self-doubt and so much frustration and so much rejection and jealousy as well. You look at other peers and you're like, oh, why did that book take off?
I know, but you know what, to me it starts like this. The jealousy lasts for a nanosecond, and then I'm happy for that author. It's because one success to me is everybody's success, especially in a business that's so weird right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then,
and it depends on the person. So we've talked about Sean a couple of times. He's a great example of somebody who, I knew casually for a while, going to these conferences and stuff like that. We were always friendly. And then just to see this guy's career just I mean, just blow up in the last 2 or 3 years. Like, it's like there's a little bit of jealousy, but he's such a cool, nice guy that, so I was there on, what was it, last Saturday night at the banquet when he won the ITW Thriller Award for Razorblade Tears. And I was just happy, I'm like, that's so cool. And he already has a number of different awards in his pocket, but it couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
Right.
So that was, but then other people are like, oh, that person's not talented.
Oh yeah. I don't understand that. But what I think about that kind of writing that he does is that it is fearless, and you could tell that he is having a freaking blast.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if he is or not, but I'm reading it. I'm like, I hope I'm having much fun as he did writing it, like that kind of thing. So.
Right. And he's noirish as well as you are. So when you read stuff like, his work or other, I don't know if you read a lot of noir, do you find yourself being kind of maybe pulled in different directions, maybe being influenced when you don't want to be influenced?
When I'm reading other people's work?
Yeah, that's within kind of the similar boundaries of what you're writing.
No, it's so weird. I know that some writers say that, I mean, I'm sure that they're influencing you in some ways, right? When you're reading other people's work. But now I'm at the point, this is going to sound really bad. Authors reach that point where no one writes as good as they just don't. They do. Yeah. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm not saying I'm great or anything. But no,
but
I have my own
you have your voice.
And, yeah, exactly.
Totally. And that takes years. And I think voice is so much of a cadence. And so when I write, it's very much about the actual sentence structure. And, I'm writing a lot of one sentence paragraphs, 3-word sentences, and it's very staccato-y, and it's very like just boom, boom. That. Yeah. I like that. But it just, I don't try to do it. It's just how I think. And then I read another thriller, and it'll be much more descriptive, much more exposition, and it's wonderful. And I think this would be impossible for me to do this, but I like how I write.
Yeah.
So and that's that's your safe space.
Yeah, and it's so funny because I've been doing a lot of nonfiction articles for the book that's coming out, and it's so strange because when I read like Roxane Gay's essays, or I'll read Colson Whitehead, I think, did an essay and stuff. And I was like, then I'm like, oh my God, I would just give my left arm if I can write nonfiction like that. I mean, you're talking about sentence structure and
research.
And yeah.
Yeah. I just read Karen Abbott's Ghosts of Eden Park, which is about a bootlegger in the 20s, and it's nonfiction.
Okay.
And I had the pleasure of meeting her. We both spoke at a literary event, but I read this book and I emailed her, like, I can't even wrap my head around writing like this. And it's just, it's beautiful, but I just think I don't have that my muscle is different. Mm-hmm. But I guess, but we all change. I'm sure your style has changed since your debut novel.
Yeah, it has. It's and you can kind of tell, I think, when somebody's having a hard time and they're self-doubt, writer's block. I think you can tell that in the work. Yeah. And maybe that's why I'm so sensitive about my debut, because I believe if you read that, you'll see that. In my later work, it's so funny. I've gone almost to if you say a scale, self-doubt, on one end of the scale, I want to keep these things private, not being authentic. And the other end of the scale, you feel like you're the next freaking Papa Hemingway or something, right? And then sometimes I even surpass the at end of the scale. I have to bring myself back.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm like, sometimes I'll write something and I'm like, oh gosh, that's so purple prosy. So I have to come calm it down, Faye, dial it back a little bit. So
and it all goes to what you're working on, right? So it depends on so when you're, I know you have your second in a 4-book series coming out, so I assume you're kind of knee deep in books 3 and 4, probably.
Don't tell my editor, but it's all up here in my head.
Okay, well that's where it needs to start somewhere. But is there? So, for example, like the next thing I'm going to write, and it's probably going to be a few months before I can even get to it. I don't really know it, but I have a sense of the mood, and it excites me because it's dark and it's gritty, and I'm like, I'm passionate about this mood. Do you have, when you sit down to write, are you thinking thematically, this is the message I want to get across, or you're just excited about the characters, and how does that affect your passion for what you're working on?
It's definitely the characters, right? And sometimes when I'm writing really hot, the characters come to me fully formed. There's like very little development I have to do.
Because you just visualize them.
I just visualize, and sometimes I hear their voices.
Oh wow.
Yeah. But there's medicine for that.
I wasn't going to say it.
Like,
I mean, if it works for you.
Yeah, like Floyd, the villain in this one, he was just like, "How you doing there?" and kind of sat down and crossed his legs in his white suit with his fedora and his peacock feather. And they told me
Floyd's a great name for a villain, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. So so that's what excites me. I do a lot of free writing. And that's probably why I'm on the other end of that scale, and I have to pull myself back to relate to the reader. And that's a hard thing to do, because you get, and because I don't outline, so you get so far down, and you're like, I like this, like I personally like this, but you have no context for like, what would somebody else think? Are you involved in critique groups or anything like that, or who's looking at your stuff? No, gosh, did you ask that question? I was going to say, no, I'm not involved in critique groups. I never had good luck with critique groups. There's too many dynamics going on there.
When you have to listen to you, I'm going to listen to you, not so much,
exactly.
And that takes years to figure that out.
Yeah. And if you find a real good one, and then sometimes I see people that'll find a really good critique group, and then they're really, simpatical. They're all like, it's really kind of good, and all of a sudden they implode. Somebody will say something and they implode. Yeah. But I have a writing partner, and she was at my old English. She's not old. She's my English. She was my former English professor. So she's that's who my writing partner is, and she guides me. And when I'm talking to her, I'm in a no BS zone, and she tells me when I'm off my rocker. And
that's good.
Yeah. So
and the level of implicit trust you have to have have that kind of feedback. I mean, that's how I feel with like my agent, for example. And I don't always agree with her, but she gives me very direct. This is what I like. She doesn't couch anything. Yeah. The first years you're with an agent, like anything you say, I'll do whatever. I don't care. Yeah. And then after a while, you're like, I don't know if I agree with that, but I appreciate your perspective. But it is important to have that other reader that you can trust, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're going to wrap up. Before we do, we're going to do a quick storytelling. So this is the fun part of the show. I have 3 books that I just grabbed off my shelf, kind of randomly, and you're going to choose one of them, and we're going to choose a page and a sentence, and then I'll read that sentence. Then I'll read that sentence.
Some Natalie Goldberg stuff going on.
So this is like improv. So it's okay. So there's no wrong direction that this can go. And it'll last 2 or 3 minutes. Okay. So I've got Power Play by Joseph Fender. Okay. 11 Days by Donald Harstad. I don't know why I have this book, but I have this book. I don't remember reading it. And Simple Genius by David Baldacci. So choose one of those.
Let's do 11 Days.
All right. The Unknown Book.
Yeah, let's do that.
I don't know why I have this. Did you have that on your bookshelves? You're like, when did I get that? Did I ever read that?
Yeah, then I have two or three books of the same, 2 or 3 versions of the same book. Like I have the Kindle version, the audio version, and the hard copy. Kate Addison. I'm looking at one right now, and that's the one.
Exactly. Yeah. All right, so choose a page between 1 and 340.
321.
321. So we're getting towards the end of this book. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of dialogue. So choose a sentence between 1 and 10.
Let's do 6.
Okay. This is actually 3 sentences, but they're all like a couple words each. So I'm going to just read them because they're really good.
Okay.
And then I'm going to read this, and then you can either go first or I can go, whatever you want to do. But we just kind of continue the story however we want to do. And I'm not giving you much to work with here.
Okay.
I saw. There wasn't much blood. Damn.
That's it?
That's it. I saw there wasn't much blood. Damn.
Oh, damn. Okay. I saw there wasn't much blood. Damn. Gosh. Even though he had gone through the car window, the front windshield, I couldn't believe that he wasn't cut all to pieces.
Everything had been going just as I had planned. I had been wearing my seatbelt, and I knew he wasn't. So when I directly hit him head on, I knew he would go through that windshield, and I thought that would be the end of that. But now there was a mess to clean up. I got out of my car and walked over to where he lay on the asphalt.
Since I don't like guns, and I didn't have one on me anyway, I looked at a big rock on the side of the road and thought.
I looked up and down the street. It was 4 p.m, and I was surprised there was nobody else there, but I knew I didn't have much time. Strange that I didn't like guns, but I'd be willing to smash a rock into his skull.
Yeah.
But I picked up the rock and leaned over his face.
Yeah. And then I got closer and closer to his face. I didn't know what I was doing, but pretty soon I could smell sweat and blood. Maybe there was some internal bleeding, but I could not rely on the fact that he may be dead at any moment from injuries I couldn't see. But I didn't know if I could kill him. I've never killed anyone before.
The rock weighed heavy in my right hand. It felt like a prison sentence. Maybe this whole thing was going to end that way anyway. I leaned over him and he opened his eyes, confirming he was still alive. He tried to say something, but only blood-covered spit bubbled from his lips.
It was frothy, so I knew it probably was a lung injury. Maybe if I could just wait. I looked at my watch. I thought about what would happen if I didn't make it to the airport on time. I knew I couldn't wait. I had to use what I had in my hand.
And then I saw something different, another option, maybe something that would be more like stepping on a bug rather than smashing it with my hand. A jagged piece of glass from the windshield I saw now was lodged directly in the side of his neck. It must have missed his artery, but boy, one swift kick to that shard of glass might solve all my problems.
I took a deep breath, looked up and down the street again to make sure it was still deserted, brought my foot back, and I kicked as hard as I can at that glass.
I think we're going to call it there. That was beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, that just got to the point real fast.
Yeah, exactly.
there was no dancing going on there.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the sentence that we were given. Like there was going to be some kind of bloody thing going on for sure.
Yeah, and you know what the funny part is that we did, and this is what I love about my friend too, because she's really on the craft of writing. She's actually a English professor at University of the Pacific, and she's working to change the department to make it more of a craft business of writing type thing.
Great, yeah.
And it's just that little story, you could see this guy's character. Mm-hmm. Right? You could see that he wasn't a killer, maybe not a bad person, but he did want somebody to go through his windshield. But he was doing something like perhaps all murderers feel they have to do, right? He's got this huge dilemma. And that's just from just sketching out those very few sentences. Yeah.
Well, and it's crazy. It could just be, so when you said he didn't like guns, that changes everything, right? Yeah, about his character. You're like, oh, okay, this isn't who I thought it was. Mm-hmm. We're going to go, and that's the stuff that I think is so much fun. You're like, oh, okay, I have to reset my expectations, which is great because all of a sudden you made him very much not a cliche.
Yeah.
So that was fun. Good job.
Yeah. All right.
Well, listen, I'm excited for the release of your book in just a few weeks, I guess, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. It never gets old, does it?
What was that?
It never gets old, does it?
No, it doesn't, but they're working me so hard.
Yeah.
Like doing, well, I love things like this, but then I've done like these articles that they want me to write. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm worthy, because nonfiction has always scared the crap out of me.
Sure.
Yeah. So
it's a lot of work, but it's part of the business for sure. So,
yes.
Well, what a pleasure to talk to you today, Faye, and best of luck with your release. And I'm looking forward to continuing to follow your career.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for having me on the show.
Of course. Enjoy your day.
Okay. You too.
Bye.
Bye.
So that's it. That was my conversation with Faye Snowden. She was great. I really enjoyed hanging out with her for a little bit. And if you want to get to know more about her, you can just go to her website, which is faysnowden.com, and make sure you check out her latest book, Killing Rain. But keep in mind that Killing Rain is part of a 4-part series. The first book is Killing Fire, so maybe start with that one first. And if you want to find out more about me or reach out to me, you can find me at carterwilson.com. You can also subscribe to my newsletter there, which I work very hard on, so I would appreciate that. And see maybe if I'm going to be in your neck of the woods anytime soon. So that's it. That's the episode. That's it for now. More episodes of Making It Up out soon. In the meantime, I appreciate you, as always, either watching this or listening to this. Take care. Thank you.